As President Trump intensifies his sweeping crackdown on immigration, more longtime residents, people who have lived in this country for years, are being caught up in the effort. Stephanie Sy has more.
We've seen over and over again this year the detention of U.S. residents who were previously not at risk of deportation. This has included Laotian refugees displaced after the Vietnam War. Students of history might recall that Laos was bombed relentlessly by the U.S. in the 1960s and 70s. In the tumultuous years that followed the end of the war, thousands of Laotian families were resettled in the U.S. as refugees. Now, a criminal conviction can threaten a refugee's legal status, but for decades, Laotians in that situation were allowed to remain here because there is no repatriation agreement between the U.S. and Laos. That has changed. In recent months, deportation flights to Laos have resumed for the first time in years. One of those affected is Alan Fetsadakan. He arrived in the United States as a toddler, and today he faces the threat of deportation. Alan, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
I want to go back to what happened over the summer when you were detained. It's July. You go in for an annual appointment with immigration officials that I understand you've gone to without incident for years, but you end up being detained for nearly 2 months. Alan, what was your immediate reaction when you were arrested? What were you told about why this was happening to you?
First of all, I was shocked, scared, worried. I was just speechless and I couldn't think of anything else. Everything was taken away from me. Just in the blink of an eye, I lost everything, just not knowing what's going to happen next, not knowing what's going to happen to my wife, my family, my kids, just all the loved ones, not knowing what's going to happen to myself. The ICE agent had mentioned to me that my supervision had been revoked, and that was all I was told.
Okay, and so then you're in this facility in Tacoma for 2 months. What were conditions like? How were you housed? And were you able to see your children and your family?
Yes, I was fortunate enough to see my family, my wife, my kids, just because I'm local here in Seattle. The housing unit I was in, they housed around 70 to 80 detainees at any given time. It's an open unit. The light stays on 24 hours a day. You know, you just have 4 walls, no windows, limited time to be in the outdoor yard. It's frustrating. It leaves you hopeless, stressed.
I want to talk a little bit more about your distant past, because when you were detained back in July, you were already under a deportation order that dated back to 1998, and that was because you had been convicted on bank fraud. Alan, what do you want people to understand and know about that old conviction and that time in your life? Because you were only 18 at that time, and from what I've read, you had had a really tough childhood.
Correct. I had a tough childhood growing up, losing my brother from committing suicide, losing my grandma that raised me, not having a stable household. It was just tough growing up, having a baby and newborn when I was 17. I made a mistake and moving forward, I'm an adult now and a responsible adult with a loving family. I built my whole entire life here with my family.
So you were released, Alan, by a federal judge a few weeks ago, last month. Your lawyers, from what I understand, are working on getting that old case vacated in federal court. How much time do they have? Do you know how much time you have before you may wake up and have to get on a plane and be deported?
I have no idea. This is one of the uncertainty that I feel as if I'm a lost soul. And I don't know what's going to happen to me tomorrow or 2 months from now or a year from now. I don't know. And it puts my life on hold and my family's life and everybody that's close to me. It's stressful. And even though, however, I'm released, I'm thankful. But the stress and the uncertainty it's never going away.
And your wife and your kids, they are U.S. citizens, right? How are they coping with all of this? And is there sort of a worst case scenario that you can prepare for?
We haven't prepared, because we never thought that this day would come. After 25 years, 30 years, we just never thought back of it. We've never prepared for this. Kind of talked more about it this year because of what we see on the news of what's going on. It never got out of our sight since this year.
Alan, what worst case scenario might you be preparing for at this point? Could you start over in Laos? Have you thought about that?
I have not thought about starting over in Laos as I don't know where to start and where to begin. I don't have any family. If I got sent back to Laos, I would just be on my own. I wouldn't know where to begin. It'll be a brand new country, a brand new life at such an old age. So I don't know where to begin. I don't know where to start. Everything unknown that's here.
I understand you've been getting a lot of support from people who have heard your story, including those who have raised money for your family on GoFundMe. Can you talk about what that support has meant to you and your family, and what else you feel you really need right now?
That support has been tremendous. It's been everything. It's been a reflection of me just being a good person, moving on from my past, building a community, having my family around. What I need now is just the support and the fight to prevail from this immigration madness.
Alan, thank you so much for agreeing to share your story with us. We wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Stephanie.
And late today, the NewsHour received a response from the Department of Homeland Security about this case, saying he has 4 convictions for larceny and fraud, going on to say, quote, "Thanks to an activist judge, this criminal is now loose on America's streets."